Hey guys, my name is Sandeep Patel. I'm the founder of Slotify.ca. In this video, we're going to learn how many different ways we can delete an array. Alright, so there are basically three ways we can delete an array, right? You can delete from the beginning, you can delete from the end, and then you can delete from the middle, right? At any index, right? Let's consider this as an I, right? So for example, if this is an I, and then I goes from 0 until 8, so this is beginning, this is end, so we can delete at any index I, right? So deleting array at any index, right? So there are three different ways we can delete an array. Alright, so let's look at visually how we can do this, right? So first of all, when you want to delete at the beginning, what you can do here is that you can just copy, like overwrite element on let's say you want to delete at this position, right? So you take all the elements on your right side, right, and then just shift them toward left side, right? So you can move 3 at this position, 4 at this position, 5 at this position, and then once you get the empty position, you can just delete this empty space, right? And that's how you can delete at the beginning and delete it at index. For example, let's say you want to delete this element right here, right, where this value 4 is, right? So what you can do here is that you can create a new array and then copy element until index I, which is 1 and 3, into this new array, and then you can start a loop from index plus 1, which is starting from here until the end of the array, and then you can copy those elements as well, right, into this new array, and then that would definitely remove these element at index 2, right? Deleting at the end is pretty simple. We don't have to do anything about this, right? Like anything about until at this point, right? Like we don't have to do moving or shifting these elements. We can just remove last array, like we just pop it out, the last element, that's all, right? Let's look at the code and understand. Alright, so there are three functions here that deletes at the beginning, at the index, and delete at the end. So let's say we have an array 1 2 3 4, right, and we want to delete at the beginning, right? So if you understand the logic before, let's say this is an input array, right? So what we want to do here is that we want to shift the element, right? So for example, we're shifting 2 towards 1, right? So that would overwrite 1, right? And then we're moving 3 at the position 2, right? So that becomes 3, and moving 4 from here to here, right? So now the array is shrinked by 1 element, right? And this is exactly what you want to do here, right? All right, let's do this. So what should we do, right? So we should run a loop from, let's say, starting from 0, and instead of running loop until array.length, we want to remove one space at the end, right? And then I++. Okay, now what we do is we take this current position, let's say whatever at the index 0 will update with the next index value, right? In this case I+1, right? And then we console.log array. So basically we shift the element and then shrink the array. And the last, I think there should be an empty spot here. Let's take a look and understand. Yeah, you see, there's also, because we copied elements like this. So the first index, we copied element from 2 goes here, 3 goes here, 4 goes here, and then last element already had a 4, right? So that's why we have 2 duplicates here. So in this case, what we can do is we can update the array length with array length -1, right? So that would take care of the last element, right? It's going to remove that, right? And this is how you can delete array element in the beginning position, right? Okay, so what is the time complexity? And now I think you become a pro at calculating time complexity. If you watch my other videos, basically we are doing n iteration here, and within those n iteration, we have this 1 unit of space. So this statement is taking 1 unit of space, so 1 into n, that is O of n. So the overall complexity of the code within this loop is O of n, right? And that is the biggest contributor in this algorithm, right? In this function, this is O of 1. We don't count that because it's a smaller value than this one, right? This takes O of n, which is a bigger. In BIGO, we only concern about the bigger terms, right? So we ignore all the smaller ones. Okay, how about the space complexity? So in the space complexity, we're not using any extra variables here, right? We're only mutating the existing input array. So in this case, you can say O of 1, right? There is no additional variable used. Okay, how about the deleting at index, right? All right, so let's run this function. So let's say that delete at index take index, right? All right, so let's say we want to remove whatever at index 2, right? So we take this array, we try to visualize first so that it's easy for us to manipulate, right? So delete at index takes an array, which is this input array, right? And then we want to delete element at index 2. So 0, 1, 2. So we're basically trying to delete number 3 here. So the output array should be like this, right? So this is what we are trying to do. Okay, how do we do that, right? So as I said before, if we're trying to delete 3, we need to create a new array first and then copy the first 2 elements before this index, right? All right, so let's do a copy. Const array copy, which is number, right? And then this is empty. Now we do run a for loop, let I becomes 0 until I is less than index, right? I plus plus. So we run from 0 until index I. In this case, index I is this. So we're basically looping through 1 and 2. And then we can copy those elements from existing array, right? So let's take a look at console.log array copy. And this should return 1, 2, right? There we go, right? 1, 2. Now, what we do is we need to delete this 3. So how do we do this? So we can create another loop. Okay. So now, why this loop is because let's say we start at index and then we run until array.length, right? So if we start at the index, which means we start at this, right? But we want to exclude this element, right? So we should start index at index plus 1, right? So now we are at this position 4th, and it's going to run until the array length, which is here. There are no more element, so it's only going to print this 4, right? So this I has that value, but how about this array I? If we do this, before we copied these 2 elements, so this array copy now has length of 2, and if we override that 2 with 4, then we're not gonna get the output. We will get the duplicate 4 here. That we don't want, right? So what I do is I minus 1, right? to avoid that problem. And then we can now check, it should properly display this 1 to 4, right? So that is it. To find the overall time complexity of this code, we know that whenever there's a loop, we find the number of iteration it makes. This makes n iteration in most case, right? Why n iteration? Because let's say that you're deleting an index. Let's say you're deleting this index, right? So in most case, you're gonna loop from 0 until n minus 1, right? If you ignore -1, it becomes n iteration. Let's say if you're trying to delete this element, then you have to shift this element right on the left side, which is starting at I plus 1 and then loop until the end of the array, right? In that case, you can discard +1 and you have n iteration as well here, right? And this, let's say this statement takes 1 unit of space, right? Let's say O1, right? So O1 times n becomes O of n, right? Times n becomes O of n, right? And same thing for this one. And if we, in big O, we're concerned about the bigger complexity. So either you can take that and that, both are equal. So this case, let's say overall complexity of this is O of n. How about the space complexity? So in space complexity, we look at any variables that we used. In this case, yes, we did use any. We created a new array, which is empty in the beginning. However, with the loop, it does n iteration and then adding n elements, right, into the copy. So that's why the complexity of this code is also O of n, right? It does the same thing here, but as I said before, in big O, we're concerned about the bigger term, right? And both has same space complexity. So we take O of n. How about deleting at end, right? So deleting at end is really simple. In this case, what we'll do is, let's say we can delete at end. So we have array 1, 2, 3, 4. So basically what we do is updating the array length, right? Array.length is equal to array.length -1, and then we console log, right? And then if we print this, then you can see it has 1, 2, 3. We deleted 4 at the end. And the space and time complexity for this, no matter how many times we run this function, this code will execute one time, O of 1 time. That's why both time and space complexity of this code is O1. There are no variable used, so there are no extra space. Alright, I hope you like this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you.